The Punisher Season 2. This is a Netflix original series, and one of the last of the MCU that we're going to see on the Netflix streaming service. I'm assuming that it will be cancelled after this season, and then we'll just have Jessica Jones Season 3. Obviously, there's reasons behind this, but we're focusing on the review. So this is a 13-episode second season. It takes place a fair bit after. The episodes are roughly about 50 to an hour minutes long, and that basically gives you an idea of the length here. And while this is one of the longer ones that we were supposed to, see some shorter seasons, which worked better for things such as, Iron Fist recently with their second season that ended. And yeah, so they actually use the time quite well. It is a little bit slower of a series, but that is fine because there is a lot of moving parts in this one. So yes, Netflix original, you can stream it all at once. It's going to be a little bit hard for you to perhaps binge all the way through. You might be able to do it, but this is one that I felt you could actually break up into different segments and you wouldn't feel sort of lost as to what was happening. So basically this time around, time has passed. The characters are in different places. Frank Castle, played by John Bernthal, is sort of a regular guy right now. He's not on the run after the events of the first season. He's kind of good with the law. He's finally sort of getting back into the regular mix of things, but that of course all changes because the Punisher is going to punish. And at that point, he's kind of chilling at a bar. Things are kind of going pretty cool for him. He's just gotten back into the swing of things, regular life. And then he notices this young girl. She's, kind of seems to be in trouble. And that's sort of how the first couple episodes are. You're getting to kind of get an idea of this. I won't go into any spoilers, but I just want to give a bit of a premise and a concept in terms of what is going on at the start of this. So again, I won't spoil anything. I'm just giving you an idea of how the events will play out over this season. So he kind of goes in, he sees this girl in trouble, there's dangerous people, he goes, helps her out, and the two sort of go on a journey together. He doesn't quite know what she knows, why she's in trouble, and he's just kind of helping out because he's a good guy and that's kind of what he does. So that plays out there. She's being pursued by this very obviously rich and armed sort of group. They're being influenced by a larger power, and their sort of leader is a very, very devout religious man, sort of a reverend type character. He's got the black hat and the coat and everything like that, and he's got a very coded way of doing things. He's quiet, he's mysterious, he knows he has the connections. He doesn't want to do this. There's a certain reason behind it, and you kind of get to see that play out throughout the series. And he's doing whatever it takes to kind of get back to his regular business in life. So he's sort of just tired by the situation that he has to deal with in regards to finding this girl, which is what he has been called upon to do. Then, on top of that, there's a third faction. So you get these it may seem like there's a lot going on, but every side gets developed, and that's why there's 13 episodes. So you got these two. These are the core two kind of like combative segments. But then we get a pickup from an old familiar face. This person is wanting to once again sort of build themselves up. You get a deep look at this character. If you've watched the first season, you might have an idea who it is. That being said, I think it's kind of nice to have a bit of a surprise when they do come into the picture. You get a full look at that one. So it's basically two different factions going against the Punisher. They don't cross over, as to say. There are certain moments where the factions kind of all get involved, but it very much is Punisher versus Reverend, Punisher versus his old mysterious come back into the picture sort of individual. And you get a dynamic look at each of these people and their backstory and their problems. Punisher is also looking after this girl, and while I typically hate films and movie properties that do stuff like this where they pair the old battered, darkened man with the young girl, they actually did a great job of that in this one. It didn't suck. I remember Jack Reacher, I think Never Go Back, the second one with Tom Cruise in it. It was just terrible. And I think kind of maybe the Transformers, The Last Night had a kind of dynamic like that. Usually they're just awful. They can't get them right. But this one actually sort of mattered, and the two bonding and sort of learning about the way things are together over the course of the season was spectacular. That was kind of really the heart of it. And there's more to it, obviously. The dynamics and the relationships all come back into play. Frank with his connection to Homeland, and of course his buddy that deals with the battered Marines and the help group. And while it did feel somewhat similar to the last season in terms of some of the events, this one really did expand upon it, and I like this a lot better than I did the initial one. It does feel kind of slower at times, but they are actually working on building reasoning and a thought process behind each of the groups. You get more than enough time to see the Punisher and how he's dealing with things and how he's dealing with new people. And then you get to see, I don't know if it's a reverend exactly, but it's got that like look, and that's why I'm just calling him that. You get to see his dynamic, the people that play behind him, and then you also get to see the mysterious other character that is a blast from the past, literally, and sort of his problem and how he's dealing with an insane issue too. And you get to see that play out, and there was a reason behind all the points in it, and it is worth watching those segments, even though they are a bit slower, because they do give you more context and more of a reason behind everyone's motivations, which is important, because a lot of the time these shows don't really properly develop certain characters, whereas this one had more than enough time to show off why these people are doing this, how they're motivated to do it, and perhaps the driving force behind why they're in the situations they are. And I thought they did some really fun little dynamics to it and introduced some sort of classic characters, so that was kind of interesting. It doesn't really feel like a Marvel show. Obviously this is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though it is like smaller and it's on Netflix and stuff. There was some minor little mentions and stuff like that. I won't go into details about it, about the larger universe at hand, but this really felt like a self-contained story, and it didn't feel like a Marvel film. I mean, it was a Marvel property, obviously. The Punisher is going to punish, but it was really more about a guy, the young girl, and then the people around him as they deal with these problems. And Punisher is going to punish. There were some brutal combative sequences, great choreography, looked fantastic, well shot. They had a lot of different dynamic locations. The combat was exciting when it was being viewed, and the Punisher gets beat up. It was again another kind of gritty take on the series that I don't think all the seasons of the shows quite get to. And that was actually like my favorite part of like the Daredevil stuff, is you actually see a man that is a person. They are vulnerable, they can die, and you get to see that kind of edge. I mean, he's the Punisher, he's badass, but he's not invulnerable, and he can get broken down and beat, and that is a little bit more exciting to watch, because there's that sense of danger where it's like, things can go wrong at any point, and there's people counting on him, and that worked really well in this one. So yeah, I mean, some people might find it a bit slow at times. I think it's a little essential that they have those elements to actually make the bigger moments matter more. They had an interesting sort of premise in developing the context behind why certain characters have certain issues, and it's a bit of a mystery in that regard, and they unravel it bit by bit and in a proper way. It's not just some silly flashback that's like, oh my. You actually get to see a sense of it progressing episode to episode to episode until everything sort of unravels and gets out into the open. The combat was again great, tons of action in this one, great acting from Berthenol in this. He just owns the Punisher, but brings that like stoic kind of intense action hero while still being somebody that has he's trying to hide those emotions and those problems, and you get to see that built out more by having his companion with him, someone that kind of does matter over the course of the series and the season, and I think that was really good. So things generally wrap up well in this. I mean, they could do more if they do, but at the same time, I think this is a good conclusive point for the franchise. You're not going to feel as though you've been robbed of your time or anything like that. They do end things on a pretty good note and in a fun way that does feel proper. You won't be like, damn it, they should have done more. You'll be like, they could do more, and I would appreciate it, and I'd like to watch it, but I was happy with how things finish and wrap up. So I give this an 8.2 out of 10. You can read my full review in the description below. If you have any questions about this season, let me know. I did quite enjoy it. I suggest watching it. Again, some parts might be a little bit slower than others, but you get some really intense action, some different types of scenes, and you get to see a new look at the Punisher, one that has more character and more heart, and I think that really played out well for what they're trying to present. And I really do want to see more of these characters, so hopefully, when certain licenses and everything come up, I hope that Disney doesn't actually bring these back, because these characters are great as gritty ones, and they do matter, and they have great stories. And so that is The Punisher Season 2. Available stream at Netflix all at once, and it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you like the first season. This was, in my opinion, I thought it was much better overall.